marble floor of the Celestial Hotel was so polished I could see my reflection in it, distorted and wavering like I felt inside. My hands trembled as I adjusted my pastry boxes, the corners digging into my palms hard enough to hurt. I focused on that pain, anything to distract from the growing panic clawing at my chest. I'd been delivering custom desserts here for 3 months now, always through the service entrance, always invisible. Today, the kitchen staff had redirected me through the main lobby because of some plumbing emergency in the back corridors. Of course, because my life wasn't complicated enough without walking through a space where Braden might see me. The lobby stretched before me like a gauntlet, all soaring ceilings and crystal chandeliers that caught light and threw it around like confetti. The air smelled of expensive cologne and fresh lilies from the massive arrangement on the center table. My sneakers squeaked slightly on that perfect floor, announcing my presence, marking me as someone who didn't belong here. I kept my head down, counting steps, 23 to the elevators. Then I could vanish up to the penthouse kitchen, deliver my macarons and tartlets, collect my payment, and disappear back into my small safe world. 23 steps. I could manage that. Aurora? The voice froze me mid-step. My stomach dropped, that familiar tenor with its slight whine at the edges turning my blood to ice water. I didn't turn around. Maybe if I kept walking, he'd think he was mistaken. Maybe reality would bend just this once in my favor. Aurora, wait, I know that's you. Footsteps behind me, quick and determined. My pulse hammered in my throat as I clutched the pastry boxes tighter and walked faster. 15 steps to the elevators. Just 15 more steps. Don't you dare ignore me. His hand clamped on my shoulder, spinning me around with enough force that I nearly dropped my carefully balanced boxes. Braden looked exactly as he had 6 months ago when I'd finally escaped. Sandy hair styled with too much product. Pale blue eyes that had once seemed kind, but now just looked calculating. He wore an expensive suit, probably bought with his parents' money since he'd never held a job longer than 3 months. The familiar scent of his overwrought cologne made my stomach turn. I need to make my delivery, I said, proud that my voice only shook slightly. Please let me go. Let you go. His laugh was sharp, bitter. Like you let me go? Just vanished one day, blocked my number, refused to answer the door. We were supposed to get married, Aurora. We were never supposed to get married. I took a step back, trying to put distance between us. I gave your ring back. I explained everything in my letter. Your letter. He spat the words like they tasted foul. 2 years together, and you end it with a letter? Do you have any idea how that made me look? How my mother reacted? How everyone at the club laughed behind my back? The thing about Braden was that everything always circled back to him, to his image, to how things affected his standing with people whose opinions shouldn't matter. I'd spent 2 years trying to shrink myself small enough to fit into his vision of the perfect girlfriend, baking elaborate desserts for his networking events, smiling through his subtle criticisms about my appearance, my career, my friends. The day I'd moved into my own tiny apartment above the bakery where I worked, taking only what I'd brought into the relationship, had been the first time I'd breathed freely in months. I'm sorry you were hurt, I said, aiming for calm despite my racing heart. But we weren't right for each other. You know that. What I know is that you owe me an explanation. A real one, face to face. His hand shot out, gripping my wrist. Not hard enough to bruise. Never hard enough to leave marks. Braden was too smart for that, but firm enough to communicate that I wasn't leaving until he allowed it. The boxes wobbled dangerously. You're going to make me drop these? And they're worth $300 that I can't afford to replace. Then maybe you should have thought about that before you humiliated me. My vision narrowed, the lobby around us fading as my focus tunneled to his hand on my wrist, to the familiar sensation of being trapped. This was how it had always been. His needs, his feelings, his control disguised as care. I'd promised myself never again. Never again would I let someone make me feel this small. Let go of me. And the words came out stronger than I expected, sharp enough that a passing couple glanced our way. Braden's expression shifted, his grip loosening slightly but not releasing. We're making a scene, Aurora. You hate scenes. Just come to the bar with me, we'll have a civilized conversation like adults, and then you can make your delivery. I don't want to have a conversation. Too bad. His fingers tightened again. You don't get to just walk away from 2 years without giving me closure. The elevator bank was only 10 feet away. If I could just break free, if I could reach those doors before he caught up, I could escape this nightmare. The lobby suddenly felt too warm, too close, the beautiful space transforming into a trap. Braden, please. I hated the pleading note in my voice, hated that he'd reduced me to this again. I'm working. I'll lose this contract if I'm late. 1 drink, 30 minutes, then I'll let you go. We both knew that was a lie. 30 minutes would turn into an hour, then 2. Then he'd want to get dinner, want to remind me of old times, want to wear down my resistance until I agreed to give him another chance. I'd seen this pattern before, lived through it too many times. My eyes darted past him, searching for help, for security, for anyone who might intervene. The hotel staff carefully looked away, trained to ignore minor disputes among guests and visitors. The well-dressed people in the lobby kept their distance, unwilling to involve themselves in someone else's drama. I was alone. Again. The realization galvanized me. I twisted sharply, breaking his grip with a move my friend had taught me in the self-defense class I'd taken after leaving him. The pastry boxes listed dangerously, but I managed to steady them as I spun away, my sneakers squeaking on that perfect marble as I lunged toward the elevators. "Aurora!" Braden's shout echoed through the lobby. I slammed my hand against the call button. Once, twice, 3 times, as if that would make the elevator arrive faster. Behind me, I could hear his footsteps gaining ground. My reflection in the polished elevator doors showed a young woman with wild eyes and flowers still dusting her dark hair from this morning's baking session, clutching pastry boxes like they were shields. The doors slid open with a soft chime that sounded like salvation. I threw myself forward without looking, desperate only to be anywhere he wasn't, to have metal doors between us, to have a moment to breathe and think and plan my next escape. My shoulder collided with something solid, warm, unmovable. The pastry boxes began their inevitable tumble toward the floor. Strong hands caught them, plucking them from my grasp with startling speed, steadying them before a single macaron could be disturbed. I stumbled backward, looking up at the man I'd just crashed into with enough force to brewink someone smaller. He was not smaller. The stranger stood at least 6 feet tall, broad-shouldered in a way that suggested real strength rather than gym vanity. His charcoal suit was impeccably tailored, the kind of craftsmanship I'd learned to recognize from Braden's fashion magazines. Though where Braden's expensive clothes had always looked like costume, this man wore his like a second skin. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from stone, all sharp angles and hard lines that should have been cold, but instead held an odd magnetism. But it was his eyes that stopped my breath, dark and penetrating, with an intensity that seemed to look through me rather than at me. They held a weight I couldn't name, a gravity that made the air between us feel suddenly dense. "I'm sorry," I gasped, reaching for my boxes. "I didn't see, I wasn't looking, I just... Aurora, get back here!" Braden's voice shattered the moment. Without thinking, I lunged fully into the elevator, my body moving on pure instinct. The stranger stepped aside, still holding my pastry boxes with surprising care for someone who looked like he'd never baked anything in his life. "Please," I whispered, my eyes darting to where Braden was now only feet away. "Please, I need..." The stranger's gaze flicked past me to Braden. something dark crossing his features. There and gone so quickly I might have imagined it. Then his hand moved, long fingers pressing the button for the doors to close. "Wait!" Braden shoved his hand forward, trying to catch the closing doors. But the stranger shifted, his body blocking the entrance, imposing and immovable. The doors slid shut with a soft thunk that felt like the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard. Through the narrowing gap, I caught a final glimpse of Braden's furious face, his mouth moving in words I couldn't hear and didn't want to. The elevator lurched into motion, carrying us upward, and I sagged against the back wall, my legs suddenly too weak to support me. My heart hammered against my ribs hard enough to hurt. I'd done it. I'd actually escaped. For the moment, anyway. "Thank you," I managed, looking at the man who still held my pastry boxes with unexpected gentleness. Up close, I could see details I'd missed in my panic. A small scar along his jawline, silver cufflinks at his wrists, the subtle scent of sandalwood and something darker, richer, more dangerous. "I'm sorry for crashing into you, and for dragging you into my mess." He studied me for a long moment, those intense eyes cataloging details with the same precision I used when decorating cakes, looking for flaws and asymmetries. Then, surprisingly, his mouth curved into something that might have been the ghost of a smile. "The boxes are safe." His voice was low, controlled, with an accent I couldn't quite place. Maybe Italian, maybe further east. "That seems to be what matters most to you." I laughed, the sound emerging too high and shaky. "They're not just boxes. They're 2 weeks of grocery money and the reason I still have this contract." He glanced down at the pastry containers, then back to me. "What floor?" "Penthouse kitchen," I said. "P, I think. I usually come in through the service entrance." His expression shifted, something flickering in those dark eyes. "The penthouse." "Yes, I'm delivering for a private party. Some tech executive celebrating a deal or something." I realized I was babbling, words tumbling out as the adrenaline slowly drained from my system. "I make custom desserts for events. Not here, usually, but the head chef knows my boss and recommended me, and this is probably way more information than you needed." "Aurora." The way he said my name made something in my chest tighten. Not like Braden said it, with possession and familiarity he hadn't earned. Different, like he was tasting the syllables, testing their weight. "You heard that," I said unnecessarily. I did. He's my ex-fiancé, was my ex-fiancé, except we were never actually engaged because I gave the ring back. I was babbling again, but his steady regard seemed to pull words out of me. "I ended things 6 months ago, and I haven't seen him since. And I really, truly didn't expect him to be here today." The elevator climbed smoothly, floor numbers ticking upward on the digital display. 10, 15, 20. "Does he often chase you through hotel lobbies?" the stranger asked. And there was something in his tone, something cold and sharp beneath the calm surface. "No, I've been careful to avoid places he might be. Today was just bad luck." I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold despite the climate-controlled air. "He'll give up eventually. He always does, until he doesn't. And then it starts all over again." The elevator lurched suddenly, a grinding sound echoing through the small space. The lights flickered once, twice, then settled into a dim emergency glow. The floor display froze on 23. We'd stopped moving. "What's happening?" I pushed off the wall, my earlier panic resurging in a different form. The stranger remained perfectly still, his expression unchanging as he calmly set my pastry boxes on the floor and pressed the call button. Nothing happened. He tried several others. Still nothing. "We're stuck," I whispered, the reality sinking in. "We're stuck in the elevator." He pulled out his phone, the screen casting blue light across his features. No signal. Of course not, because my day wasn't already complicated enough. I'd escaped Braden only to trap myself in a metal box suspended hundreds of feet above the ground with a complete stranger. A complete stranger who was now studying me with that same unsettling intensity, as if I were a puzzle he'd decided to solve. "How long do you think we'll be stuck here?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He slipped his phone back into his pocket with deliberate calm. "Could be minutes, could be hours. Hotel elevators have emergency protocols, but implementation varies. Hours. I could be stuck here for hours. With him." The stranger settled back against the elevator wall with the ease of someone accustomed to waiting, to being patient. His dark eyes never left my face. "So," he said, his voice carrying a note of what might have been amusement, "tell me about these desserts that are worth 2 weeks of grocery money." And despite everything, despite the trapped elevator, and Braden somewhere below, and the strange intensity of this man I just met, I found myself laughing, really laughing, for the first time in what felt like years. The emergency lighting cast shadows across his face, softening nothing. If anything, the dim glow made him look more dangerous, highlighting the sharp angles of his cheekbones, the set of his jaw. I should have been more frightened, trapped here with a stranger whose name I didn't even know. Instead, I felt oddly calm, safer in this suspended metal box than I had in the lobby with Braden. "The desserts," I said, grateful for a normal topic to focus on. Lavender macarons with honey buttercream, raspberry tartlets with dark chocolate ganache, and miniature opera cakes. All classic French techniques, but I add my own touches. I gestured toward the boxes he'd saved. "The macarons have real lavender from my grandmother's garden that I dry myself. Makes the flavor more authentic than extract." "Your grandmother taught you to bake?" He asked it casually, but I sensed real curiosity beneath the words. "She taught me everything. She immigrated from Provence when she was 20, worked in bakeries across New York until she saved enough to open her own place." The familiar story soothed my nerves. She'd let me stand on a stool beside her, measuring ingredients, learning ratios by feel rather than numbers. She said baking was about intuition as much as precision. Past tense. I nodded, swallowing against the sudden tightness in my throat. She passed 3 years ago, left me her recipe books, and a very specific instruction to never waste my talent making someone else rich. Yet you work for someone else's bakery. For now. I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the floor, my legs stretched out. After months on my feet in the bakery's kitchen, even a trapped elevator felt like a rest break. I'm saving to open my own place. It's slow going, but I'm getting there. The stranger lowered himself to sit across from me, movements controlled and precise. Even sitting on an elevator floor, he maintained an air of command that seemed built into his bones. "How much more do you need?" That's a very personal question from someone whose name I don't know. Something flickered in those dark eyes, amusement maybe. "Luca. Just Luca?" "For now." He echoed my earlier words back to me. "How much more, Aurora?" The way he said my name again made my skin prickle with awareness. I told myself it was just the enclosed space, the adrenaline still working through my system, the surreal nature of this entire situation. About $40,000. The number felt impossible, a mountain I'd been climbing with a teaspoon. I have 15 saved. The rest will take me another 2 years if everything goes perfectly, which it never does. "And your ex-fiancé, he didn't help with this dream?" I laughed, bitter and sharp. Braden thought working in a bakery was charming when we met. Quaint. Like I was playing at having a career. I picked at the hem of my shirt, the black fabric already dusted with powdered sugar from this morning's work. But when it came to actual marriage, he expected me to give it up, told me his income would be more than enough, that I could bake as a hobby for his business associates' parties. make desserts for his mother's charity events. You said no. Eventually. The admission felt heavy. It took me too long to say it, though. I kept thinking maybe I was being unreasonable. Maybe compromise meant giving up what I wanted for what he needed. That's what he told me anyway. Luca's expression hardened, something cold settling over his features. He was wrong. The certainty in his voice startled me. We'd known each other for all of 15 minutes, most of them in crisis. Yet he spoke with absolute conviction about my worth, my choices. You don't know me, I said softly. How can you be so sure? I know men like him. There was something dark in those words, layers of meaning I couldn't quite reach. Men who see people as possessions, as things to be controlled and displayed. They don't deserve loyalty. The elevator gave a small shudder, making my heart skip, but we didn't start moving again. Just a reminder that we were suspended in space, entirely dependent on machinery and luck. What about you? I asked, needing to shift focus away from myself. What brings you to the Celestial on a Wednesday afternoon? Business meeting. He checked his watch, expensive and understated, which I'm now missing. I'm sorry. Don't be, it wasn't important. Something about the way he said it made me think everything was important to Luca, that he didn't deal in trivial matters. The suit alone suggested someone who operated at a level where missing meetings had consequences. What kind of business? I pressed, curious despite myself. The kind that pays well enough that I don't worry about $40,000. It should have sounded arrogant, but his tone was matter of fact, simply stating reality. I studied him more carefully, noting details I'd missed in my initial panic. The watch was platinum, the kind of timepiece featured in magazines I couldn't afford. His shoes were Italian leather, perfectly maintained. Even his posture spoke of someone accustomed to authority, to being obeyed without question. You're not just staying at this hotel, I said, pieces clicking together. You own it, or part of it. His mouth curved, that ghost of a smile returning. Clever. The staff looked at you differently in that split second before the doors closed. And you moved to block Braden like you had every right to decide who enters and exits. I tilted my head, examining him with the same precision I used to judge if a cake was perfectly level. Plus, you're too comfortable in this situation. Most people would be anxious about being trapped. You're just patient, he repeated, something like approval in his voice. That's one word for it. What's another? Accustomed to waiting for the right moment. The words hung between us, loaded with meaning I couldn't quite decipher. The emergency lighting flickered again, and in that brief darkness, I felt the weight of his attention on me like a physical thing. Are you afraid of me, Aurora? The question surprised me with its directness. I considered it honestly, searching my feelings beneath the adrenaline and confusion. No, I said finally. I probably should be. I don't know you. We're trapped alone together. And you have this intensity about you that suggests you're not someone most people say no to. I met his gaze steadily. But I'm not afraid. Maybe I'm just too tired to be frightened of the wrong things anymore. Something shifted in his expression, a crack in that controlled facade. The wrong things? Men like Braden scared me for years and I didn't even realize it. The way they smile while cutting you down, make you question your own reality, convince you that their control is actually care. I wrapped my arms around my knees, suddenly feeling very young and very old at the same time. You might be dangerous, Luca, but at least you're honest about it. You think I'm dangerous? I know you are. I didn't know how I knew, but the certainty sat heavy in my chest. Everything about you says you're someone who makes problems disappear. The question is what kind of problems, and how you make them disappear. The elevator shuddered again, more violently this time. My hand shot out instinctively, bracing against the wall. Luca moved with startling speed, his body shifting to shield mine, one hand pressed flat against the metal beside my head. The protective instinct was automatic, ingrained, like he'd spent a lifetime putting himself between threats and things he deemed worth protecting. The shaking subsided. We stayed frozen in that position, his body close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him, smell the sandalwood and something uniquely him underneath. My heart pounded, but not from fear. I should move, he said quietly, but didn't. Probably, I agreed, but didn't pull away. His eyes searched mine, that dark intensity focused entirely on me. Your ex-fiancé, the one waiting downstairs, if he's still there when we get out, what will you do? Try to avoid him. Go back through the service entrance like I should have in the first place. And if he follows you? If he finds where you work, where you live? The scenarios I'd spent 6 months trying not to imagine spilled out. I'll handle it. I always have. By running away. The words stung, because they were true. By surviving. There's a difference. Luca pulled back slightly, giving me space, but not much. What if you didn't have to run? What if the problem simply went away? Something in his tone made my pulse quicken. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that men like your Braden respond to one thing: power. The realization that they've chosen the wrong target, that pursuing you carries consequences they're not willing to face. You can't just threaten him. That's illegal. And he has family money, lawyers. I'm not suggesting threats. Luca's voice was calm, almost gentle. I'm suggesting presence. The knowledge that you're under someone's protection. Someone who makes Braden and his lawyers seem like children playing at being adults. I should have been horrified. Should have recognized this for what it was. Another man trying to control my situation, decide my fate. But looking into Luca's eyes, I didn't see Braden's need to own. I saw something colder, more practical. A businessman identifying a problem and proposing a solution. Why would you do that? I asked. You don't know me. My problems aren't your responsibility. Perhaps I'm interested in making them my responsibility. The elevator lights flickered back to full brightness, harsh and sudden. A crackling sound came from the emergency speaker, followed by a tinny voice. This is hotel security. We're aware of the elevator malfunction and are working to restore service. Please remain calm. We'll have you moving shortly. Luca didn't move, didn't reach for the speaker to respond. He simply continued to watch me, waiting for my answer to a question I wasn't sure he'd actually asked. I should thank you, I said instead. For helping me get away from Braden. For catching my boxes. For not being weird about being stuck in here with me. Is that a dismissal? It's a statement of fact. He smiled then. Really smiled, and it transformed his face completely. The hard lines softened, something almost boyish emerging beneath the dangerous exterior. You have a sharp tongue when you're not frightened. I'm always frightened, I admitted. I've just learned to talk anyway. The elevator jerked, then smoothly resumed its upward climb. Floor 24, 25, the penthouse level approaching fast. When we get out, Luca said, his voice dropping lower, you'll make your delivery. You'll collect your payment, and then you'll have a decision to make. What decision? Whether to walk back out through that lobby alone, hoping Braden has given up and gone home, or whether to accept my offer of protection. The door slid open with a soft chime, revealing the penthouse hallway. Luca retrieved my pastry boxes with the same careful handling he'd shown before, presenting them to me like an offering. A man in an expensive suit waited in the hallway, thick-necked and watchful. Security, clearly, though not hotel security. He nodded to Luca with the deference of someone who knew exactly who held power here. "Marco," Luca said, "Ms. Aurora has a delivery to make. Ensure she's escorted safely to the kitchen and back." "Of course, sir." I took my boxes, my mind spinning. "I never told you my last name." "You didn't have to." Luca stepped out of the elevator, straightening his cuffs with casual precision. "The Celestial's penthouse kitchen doesn't accept deliveries without running background checks on the vendors. Your information was already on file." The realization hit me like cold water. He'd known who I was before the elevator doors even opened in the lobby. Had seen my name, my business, probably my address and work history. Everything. "You knew," I whispered. "You already knew everything about me." "Not everything." His eyes held mine. "I didn't know you'd taste like determination underneath the fear. I didn't know you'd fight back against a man twice your size with nothing but pastry boxes as weapons. I didn't know your grandmother taught you that baking was intuition." He moved closer, lowering his voice so only I could hear. "And I didn't know that I'd decide, before we even reached the penthouse, that you were going to be mine." The possessive declaration should have terrified me, should have sent me running in the opposite direction. But something in me, some part I didn't quite recognize, responded to the certainty in his voice. "I'm not looking for another relationship," I managed. "Good. Neither am I." He pulled a card from his inner jacket pocket, pressing it into my palm. "I'm offering you protection, Aurora, a shield against men like Braden. No strings, no expectations beyond this. You're under my watch now. No one touches what's mine." "I'm not yours." "Not yet," he agreed, echoing his earlier words about his name. "But you will be. And when you're ready to stop running, you'll call that number." Marco cleared his throat politely. "Sir, your 2:00 is waiting." Luca stepped back, that controlled mask sliding into place. "Make your delivery. Marco will ensure you get out safely." "And Aurora?" He waited until I met his eyes. "Choose the service exit today. But eventually, you'll walk through the front lobby with your head high, because no one who belongs to me hides in the shadows." He turned and walked away, his footsteps silent on the plush carpet. I stood frozen, his card burning in my palm like a brand, watching him disappear around a corner with his security following. "Ms. Aurora?" Marco's voice was respectful but firm. "The kitchen is this way." I followed on autopilot, my mind replaying every word, every look, every moment in that elevator. The pastry boxes felt lighter now, or maybe I just felt stronger, changed somehow by 2 hours with a dangerous man who'd decided I was worth protecting. In my pocket, Luca's card seemed to pulse with possibility and threat in equal measure. And somewhere below, Braden waited, unaware that the world had shifted beneath his feet. The kitchen staff took my desserts with professional efficiency, barely glancing at me as they inspected each piece for damage. None, thankfully. I collected my payment, and Marco escorted me back to the service elevator, his presence solid and unwavering behind me. "Mr. Rossi wanted me to ensure you got to your vehicle safely," he said as we descended. His accent was faint but present, Italian like the hint I'd caught in Luca's voice. "Where are you parked?" "I don't have a car. I took the subway." Something flickered in his expression. Disapproval, maybe, or concern. "Mr. Rossi won't like that. The subway isn't safe for you anymore." "Why? Because I turned down a business meeting in a hotel lobby." I tried to keep my voice light, but anxiety crept in at the edges. "Braden's annoying, not dangerous." Marco's look suggested I was being dangerously naive. Men become dangerous when their pride is wounded. Your ex made a scene in a very public place. That kind of humiliation breeds resentment. The service elevator opened to a bland hallway, the glamour of the main hotel stripped away to reveal the utilitarian bones beneath. We walked past laundry carts and supply closets until reaching a door marked Staff Exit. Marco pushed it open, scanning the alley before gesturing me through. The subway entrance is 2 blocks west. I'll walk you there. That's really not necessary. It is. He said it with the finality of someone following orders he wouldn't disobey. Mr. Rossi was very clear. We emerged into late afternoon sunlight, the alley giving way to a side street where delivery trucks idled and restaurant workers took smoking breaks. The city noise enveloped me, car horns and distant sirens and the perpetual hum of humanity that was New York's soundtrack. I tried to process what had happened. 2 hours ago, I'd been running from Braden. Now I had a security escort and a business card from a man who casually claimed ownership over people he'd just met. The rational part of my brain screamed that this was wrong, that accepting Luca's protection meant entering a world I didn't understand and couldn't control. But another part, the part that was exhausted from 6 months of looking over my shoulder, found dangerous comfort in his certainty. What exactly does Mr. Rossi do? I asked Marco as we walked. He said business, but that could mean anything. Marco's expression remained neutral. Mr. Rossi has many interests: real estate, hospitality, import-export. He's a very successful man. That's a politician's answer. You didn't actually tell me anything. A slight smile cracked his professional demeanor. You're observant. Mr. Rossi likes that. So he discussed me with you. He discusses everything with me. I've worked for him for 12 years. Marco guided me around a puddle left from the morning's rain. In that time, I've never seen him take personal interest in someone so quickly. You should consider that significant. Or concerning. Both can be true. We reached the subway entrance, crowds flowing up and down the stairs in a constant stream. Marco stopped, his eyes scanning the people around us with professional vigilance. You have his card, he said. When you decide to use it, and you will, call any time. Day or night. Someone will answer. What makes you so sure I'll call? Because right now you're thinking about whether your ex-fiancé knows your subway route, whether he might be waiting at your stop, whether going home means walking into another confrontation. Marco's voice gentled slightly. Mr. Rossi can make those worries disappear. All you have to do is ask. He was right, and I hated that he was right. The thought of descending into the subway, of the walk from the station to my apartment, of being alone and vulnerable, made my stomach clench with anxiety I'd been suppressing. Thank you for the escort, I said, instead of addressing his point. Marco nodded once, then turned and walked back toward the hotel, leaving me alone with my thoughts, and the decision pressing against my chest like a weight. I descended into the subway, paid my fare, and positioned myself in the middle of the crowded platform. Safer there, surrounded by people, visible. The rational brain still functioning despite everything else. My phone buzzed. A text from my roommate and best friend, Jenna. You're late. Everything okay? Did the delivery go well? I typed back. Long story. Home soon. The train arrived with its usual screech of brakes and blast of stale air. I pushed into a middle car, found a spot near the doors where I could see everyone around me. Scanned faces automatically, looking for sandy hair and pale blue eyes. Braden wasn't there. But the anxiety remained, coiled tight in my chest. Luca's card felt heavy in my pocket. I pulled it out, studying it under the fluorescent lights. Simple. Elegant. Just a name, a phone number, and an address in gold, embossing on black cardstock. No company name, no title. Like the details were irrelevant to anyone who mattered. Luca Rossi. I had a last name now at least. I pulled out my phone, fingers hovering over the search bar. Did I want to know? Did I want to confirm what my instincts already whispered? That Luca was exactly the kind of dangerous his entire demeanor suggested? Knowledge was power, though. And I was so tired of being powerless. I typed his name into the search engine. The results filled my screen. article after article from business journals and society pages. Luca Rossi, real estate magnate. Luca Rossi at charity galas with beautiful women on his arm. Luca Rossi opening a new hotel, a new restaurant, a new luxury apartment complex. But beneath the legitimate business coverage, there were other articles. Opinion pieces and true crime blogs that asked questions without answers. Speculation about his family's connections, about the speed of his empire's growth, about rivals who'd suddenly sold their properties at significant losses or disappeared from the New York business scene entirely. Nothing concrete, nothing actionable. Just a consistent thread of suspicion woven through his success story. The Rossi family, one article explained, had immigrated from Sicily 3 generations ago. They'd built their fortune through hard work and strategic investments, or so the official story went. But older New Yorkers remembered when the Rossi name meant something different, something whispered about in careful tones. I clicked through to images. Luca in a tuxedo at some gala, his hand at a woman's back, his expression commanding even in formal celebration. Luca cutting a ribbon at a hotel opening, his smile polished, but not quite reaching his eyes. Luca in a business suit outside a courthouse, his lawyer beside him, the caption reading, "Rossi cleared of all charges in business partner's disappearance." My hands trembled slightly as I processed the information. This was who had offered me protection. This was who had called me his in that elevator, who had looked at me like I was a puzzle worth solving and a prize worth claiming. I should have been running in the opposite direction. Instead, I saved his number in my phone. The train lurched to my stop. I exited with the crowd, climbed the stairs back to street level, and walked the 4 blocks to my apartment building with my keys threaded through my fingers like makeshift brass knuckles. Another trick from that self-defense class. My apartment was a 4th-floor walk-up in a building that had probably been elegant in the 1920s, but now just looked tired. The hallway smelled of cooking garlic and old carpet. I could hear my neighbor's television through the thin walls, some game show with canned laughter. This was my life. Small, humble, safe in its anonymity. Everything I'd built after leaving Braden, after claiming my independence. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I unlocked my door and stepped inside. Finally, Jenna looked up from her laptop, relief crossing her features. I was about to send a search party. How did the delivery go? Jenna had been my anchor through the breakup with Braden, the friend who'd helped me find this apartment and spotted me rent money when my savings ran short. She worked as a graphic designer from home, her half of our living room currently covered in color swatches and font samples. It went fine, I said automatically. Then, because I'd never been good at lying to her, actually, it was completely insane. I told her everything. The confrontation with Braden in the lobby, the escape into the elevator, Luca appearing like some dark angel to save my pastries and block my ex from following. The hours trapped together, his unsettling intensity, his casual declaration of ownership, Marco's escort and the card burning a hole in my pocket. Jenna listened without interrupting, her expression cycling through concern, disbelief, and something close to horror. "Let me get this straight," she said when I finished. "A man you've never met, who happens to own the hotel you were delivering to, decided in the span of 2 hours that you belong to him now. And you're considering his offer of protection." Hearing it summarized like that made it sound even more insane than it felt. "He saved me from Braden," I said weakly. "By being possibly worse than Braden." Jenna stood, pacing our small living room. "Aurora, did you read those articles? The disappeared business partner? The cleared charges that everyone still questions? This man is dangerous." "I know." "Then why do you have that look on your face?" "What look?" "Like you're actually thinking about calling him." She grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to meet her eyes. "Listen to me. I love you, and I will support you through anything. But this is how women end up on true crime podcasts." I pulled away, moving to the window that overlooked our street. From here, I could see the bodega on the corner where I bought milk, the bus stop where I waited on rainy mornings, the coffee shop where I sometimes treated myself to a latte. My world, small and safe and entirely mine. Except it didn't feel safe anymore. Not with Braden knowing where I worked, where I made deliveries. Not with 6 months of running catching up to me in a hotel lobby. What if Jenna's right? I asked quietly. What if I can't keep running forever? Then you get a restraining order. You go to the police. You do things legally through the system. The system that requires proof Braden's threatening me when he's too smart to leave evidence? The system where his family's lawyers will make me look like a bitter ex who can't let go? I turned to face her. I tried that route. I documented everything, saved every text, every voicemail. The police said they couldn't do anything unless he physically hurt me. So I ran instead. Jenna's expression softened with sympathy. I know it's frustrating, but making a deal with someone potentially more dangerous than Braden isn't the answer. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I stared at the screen, my heart rate picking up. Don't answer it, Jenna warned. I answered it. Hello? Aurora. Luca's voice, warm and certain, like he'd known I would pick up. I hope Marco saw you home safely. He walked me to the subway. I made it back fine. Good. I wanted to ensure you arrived without incident. Behind me, Jenna made frantic gestures suggesting I hang up immediately. I turned away, lowering my voice. How did you get my number? The background check for your delivery access included contact information. He said it casually, like his surveillance of me was perfectly reasonable. I'm calling to extend an invitation. An invitation to what? Dinner tomorrow evening, 7 o'clock. I'll send a car. The presumption in his voice made my temper flare. You're asking me out? After everything you said in that elevator about ownership and protection. I'm asking you to dinner, he corrected, so we can discuss the terms of our arrangement. What arrangement? I never agreed to anything. Not yet. That phrase again, loaded with certainty about a future he'd decided on. But you will. Because you're smart enough to recognize when you need help. And I'm offering it. The only question is whether you're brave enough to accept. This isn't about bravery, isn't it? His voice dropped lower, more intimate. You spent 2 years letting someone make you small, Aurora. Then you found the courage to leave, to build something of your own. But now he's back, threatening that independence you fought for. I'm offering you a way to stop running. By becoming indebted to you instead. By becoming protected by me. There's a difference. I closed my eyes, torn between the logic screaming that this was wrong and the exhaustion whispering that maybe, just maybe, I could stop fighting alone. One dinner, I heard myself say. Just to talk about what you're proposing. No commitments beyond that. One dinner, he agreed. I'll have Marco collect you at 6:30 tomorrow. I can take the subway. You could, he acknowledged. But you won't, because part of what I'm offering is the end of choosing between pride and safety. You don't have to pretend anymore that you're not exhausted from looking over your shoulder. The understanding in his voice cracked something in my chest. He saw through the brave face I'd been maintaining, straight to the fear underneath. 6:30, I repeated softly. Wear something comfortable. This isn't about impressing me. You already have. He ended the call before I could respond. I turned to find Jenna watching me with concern etched across her face. You said yes, she stated flatly. To dinner. Just dinner. With a man who makes people disappear. With a man who might be able to make Braden disappear, I corrected. Just from my life. Not permanently. Just gone. Jenna pulled me into a hug, fierce and worried. I'm coming with you tomorrow, or following in a cab, or something. I'm not letting you walk into this alone. He'll know if you follow. I don't care. Someone needs to know where you are. She pulled back, gripping my shoulders. Promise me you'll text me every hour. And if anything feels wrong, anything at all, you'll leave immediately. I promise. But as I said it, I wondered what wrong would feel like in the company of a man who'd made me feel safer in 2 hours than I had in 6 months of freedom. What wrong would feel like when everything about Luca Rossi was a contradiction, danger wrapped in protection, control disguised as care. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Luca's card on my nightstand catching streetlight through my window. Tomorrow I would have dinner with a man I shouldn't trust, discuss an arrangement I shouldn't consider, and possibly seal my fate in ways I couldn't predict. But at least I would stop running. At least for one night. I could pretend I was strong enough to face danger head-on, instead of always fleeing from it. Outside, the city hummed with its usual nighttime symphony. And somewhere in that sprawl of lights and noise, Luca Rossi was probably awake too, planning our conversation, deciding my future with the same certainty he'd shown in that elevator. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, it felt almost like relief. Marco arrived exactly at 6:30, as promised. I'd spent the entire day oscillating between canceling and what-if scenarios that left me dizzy with anxiety. Jenna had offered repeatedly to come with me, to at least follow at a distance, but I'd refused. Something told me Luca would see through any attempt at backup, and the consequences of showing I didn't trust him might be worse than going alone. I'd chosen a simple navy dress from my limited wardrobe, the kind I wore to important client meetings. Professional, but not trying too hard. My grandmother's gold locket hung at my throat, a talisman of courage I desperately needed. You look beautiful, Jenna said as I checked my reflection one final time, and terrified. Both accurate. Text me every hour. I mean it. I will. I hugged her quickly, then headed downstairs before I could change my mind. Marco waited beside a black sedan that was elegant without being ostentatious, the kind of car that said money without shouting it. He opened the back door for me with a slight bow. Ms. Aurora, Mr. Rossi is looking forward to your evening. Is he at the restaurant already? No, ma'am. Dinner will be at his residence. My stomach dropped. I thought we were going to a restaurant. Mr. Rossi prefers privacy for important conversations. Marco's tone suggested this wasn't negotiable. His home is fully staffed. You'll be perfectly safe. Safe. That word again, losing meaning with each repetition. I slid into the back seat, the leather cool against my skin. Marco closed the door and moved to the driver's seat. As we pulled away from my building, I texted Jenna. Change of plans. Dinner at his house. We'll update soon. Her response came immediately. Absolutely not. Aurora, this is how people disappear. I'll be fine, promise. If I don't hear from you by 9, I'm calling the police. I pocketed my phone, watching the city slide past the tinted windows. We drove north, leaving my familiar neighborhood behind for streets lined with increasingly expensive buildings. The architecture shifted from tired brick to polished stone, from bodegas to boutiques with names I couldn't pronounce. 20 minutes later, we pulled up to a townhouse in the East 70s, the kind of address that represented generational wealth. The building was 5 stories of limestone and wrought iron, elegant windows glowing warmly against the evening sky. A discreet security camera swept the entrance. Marco opened my door. Mr. Rossi is expecting you on the 3rd floor. I'll escort you up. The interior was stunning in its understated luxury. Marble floors, original crown molding, art that I suspected wasn't reproduction. But what struck me most was how lived in it felt. Books stacked on a side table, a sweater draped over a chair, fresh flowers in a vase. This wasn't a showpiece. This was a home. We climbed a curved staircase, my heels clicking softly on hardwood. At the third floor, Marco gestured toward an open doorway. "He's waiting in the dining room. I'll be downstairs if you need anything." I stepped through the doorway and stopped. The room was intimate despite its size, dominated by a table set for two. Candles flickered in simple holders, casting warm light that softened the formal elegance. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked a private garden, unusual for Manhattan, where outdoor space was measured in inches. And there, standing by the window with his back to me, was Luca. He'd changed from his earlier suit into dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, revealing forearms corded with lean muscle. More relaxed than this afternoon, but still radiating that controlled power that seemed fundamental to who he was. He turned as I entered, his dark eyes finding mine immediately. "Aurora, thank you for coming." Did I really have a choice? A slight smile. There's always a choice. You could have refused my invitation, blocked my number, disappeared into the city's anonymity. He moved toward me, graceful and deliberate. But you're here, which tells me something important. What does it tell you? That you're tired of being afraid, that you recognize power when you see it, and you're smart enough to know when to accept help. He gestured to the table. "Please, sit. Dinner will be served shortly." I moved to the chair he indicated, hyper-aware of him behind me as he helped settle me in place. His hands were careful, respectful, never lingering. But the brief contact sent awareness skittering across my skin. He took the seat across from me, close enough for conversation but not crowding. The distance felt calculated, designed to keep me comfortable while maintaining intimacy. "You Googled me," he said, not a question. "Of course I did. And what did you find?" "That you're either a very successful businessman with unfortunate associations or a criminal with an excellent public relations team." His laugh was genuine, surprised. "I like your directness. Most people dance around what they really think. I don't see the point in pretending. If we're having this conversation, it should be honest." "Agreed." He leaned back slightly, studying me. "So let's be honest. What do you want to know?" "Everything. Nothing." Questions crowded my throat, each one more dangerous than the last. "The disappeared business partner," I said. "Did you kill him?" "No." "Did you have him killed?" "No." He didn't flinch from the question. "Roberto Santini was my partner and my friend. When he disappeared, I spent considerable resources searching for him. His body was found 2 months later. The police investigation concluded he'd been killed by rivals in a business deal gone wrong. I was cleared of all involvement. But people still think you did it. People will always think the worst of those with power. It's easier to assume I'm a monster than to accept that sometimes tragedy strikes without conspiracy." A woman in staff uniform entered with the first course, delicate lobster bisque that smelled divine. She served us silently and withdrew. "You said you have questions," Luca prompted. "Ask them. Tonight is about building trust." I tasted the soup, buying time to organize my thoughts. It was perfect, rich, and complex. Everything in Luca's world seemed to be perfect on the surface. "What exactly are you offering me?" I asked finally. "You mentioned protection, but from what? Braden's annoying, not dangerous." "Men like Braden are more dangerous than you realize. Not physically, perhaps, but in other ways. He has family money, connections, the kind of social capital that can make your life difficult." Luca's tone was matter-of-fact. "He can call your clients, suggest you're unstable. He can make complaints to the health department about the bakery where you work. He can file frivolous lawsuits that cost you money you don't have to defend." Each scenario he described made my stomach clench, because they all felt plausible. Braden had always fought dirty when he didn't get his way, So you're offering to… what? Threaten him? I'm offering to make him understand that pursuing you carries consequences he won't enjoy. No threats necessary, just facts delivered by people he can't dismiss. And what do you get in return? The question hung between us. This was the heart of it, the price tag on his protection. Your company, he said simply. For 6 months, you'll be seen with me. At business dinners, social functions, anywhere I need a partner. You'll play the role of my girlfriend convincingly. I nearly choked on my soup. You want me to be your fake girlfriend? I want you to be my very real girlfriend in all the ways that matter publicly. What happens privately is separate. Why? I set down my spoon, searching his face for the trap. You could have any woman you want. Why me? Because most women who would date me want something. Money, status, access to my world. You want none of those things. You want independence, safety, the freedom to build your bakery dreams without interference. His gaze held mine steadily. And because you intrigue me, Aurora. You stood up to me in that elevator, called me dangerous to my face and didn't flinch. Do you know how rare that is? Maybe I'm just stupid. You're many things. Stupid isn't one of them. The main course arrived, perfectly seared duck breast with a cherry reduction. The woman who served us refilled our wine glasses and disappeared again like a ghost. 6 months, I repeated, processing. What happens after? After 6 months, we reassess. By then, Braden will have moved on. You'll have built a buffer of savings from not paying rent, since you'll be living here. And you'll have connections in the city's business community that will help when you open your bakery. Living here? My voice rose. That wasn't part of the deal. It's necessary for the arrangement to be convincing. A girlfriend who lives separately raises questions. He cut his duck with precise movements. You'll have your own suite, complete privacy. I have 5 floors, Aurora. We don't have to see each other if you don't want to. But I have a roommate, a lease, a life. Your roommate can find a new living situation. I'll cover any penalty for breaking your lease. As for your life, you'll simply be living it from a different address. He made it sound so simple, so reasonable. Just upend everything, move into a stranger's house, play pretend girlfriend to a man who might or might not be a criminal. And if I refuse? Then you refuse. I drive you home. You never hear from me again, and you handle Braden however you see fit. No threat in his voice, just acceptance. But you came here tonight, Aurora. You're considering this. Why? Because I was exhausted. Because 6 months of running had worn me down to nothing. Because the thought of someone powerful putting themselves between me and Braden felt like oxygen after drowning. Because despite every logical reason to refuse, something in me responded to Luca's certainty. His absolute conviction that he could keep me safe. I need to think about it, I said. Of course. Take the time you need. He paused. But while you're thinking, consider this. Tomorrow, Braden will wake up and decide whether to pursue you further. He'll weigh his options, maybe call his lawyer or his well-connected father. He'll strategize how to make your life difficult until you agree to talk to him, to give him the closure he thinks he deserves. Each word landed like a stone in my chest because I knew he was right. Or, Luca continued, tomorrow Braden wakes up to a visit from associates of mine. Very polite, very professional. They explain that his interest in Aurora Reyes has become noticed by people he doesn't want noticing him. They suggest, for his own well-being, that he moves on. They leave, and he never bothers you again. Just like that. Just like that. I wanted to believe it could be that simple. Wanted to believe someone could snap their fingers and make my problems disappear. What do these associates say to him exactly? What threats do they make? No threats, just information. The kind of information that makes a smart man realize he's out of his depth. Luca's expression was unreadable. Braden isn't brave, Aurora. He's a bully who preys on people without protection. The moment he understands you have protection, he'll fold. And if he doesn't, then additional measures are taken, but it won't come to that. The certainty in his voice should have been alarming. Instead, it felt like a lifeline. We finished dinner mostly in silence, both of us aware that a decision hung in the air between us, unspoken but pressing. Dessert was a delicate panna cotta with berry compote that I barely tasted, my mind too busy cataloging consequences. After coffee, Luca stood, extending his hand. "Let me show you something." I followed him down a hallway to a door he opened to reveal a bedroom suite that took my breath away. Soft grays and creams, a bed that looked cloud-soft, windows overlooking the garden, an attached bathroom in marble and glass, a walk-in closet larger than my current bedroom. "This would be yours," he said. "Complete privacy. I'm on the 5th floor, you'd be here on the 3rd. Marco and other staff are on the 2nd floor. You'd have your own key, your own space, autonomy to come and go as you please. As long as I play the devoted girlfriend when needed. As long as you uphold your end of our arrangement, yes." I moved into the room, running my fingers along the dresser, testing the mattress. Everything was perfect, expensive, designed for comfort. A gilded cage, but a cage nonetheless. "How many women have you made this offer to?" "None. You're the first." I turned to face him. "Why me, really? Don't give me the intrigue answer. Tell me the truth." He moved closer, stopping just inside my personal space. Not threatening, but present. Because when you crashed into that elevator, terrified and determined in equal measure, you didn't see me as useful. You saw me as human first. You challenged me, made me laugh, treated me like I was just a man instead of a name with power attached. His hand rose, fingers barely grazing my cheek. And because I've spent 15 years building an empire, eliminating threats, controlling everything in my sphere, but I can't control how I feel when you look at me with those defiant eyes. Can't control wanting to be the one who makes you feel safe. The admission hung between us, raw and honest. "This is crazy," I whispered. "Probably. I barely know you. You'll have 6 months to change that. What if I hate living here? What if the arrangement doesn't work?" Then we end it. No penalties, no consequences. You walk away with savings and connections and an ex-fiancé who's learned to leave you alone. It was too easy, too simple. Life didn't hand out solutions wrapped in attractive packages. But standing in that beautiful room with Luca watching me like I was something precious, I wanted to believe it could be that uncomplicated. I need to talk to Jenna first, my roommate. She deserves to know what I'm considering. Of course. Marco will drive you home. Take tonight to think. Call me tomorrow with your decision. We went back downstairs, the evening wrapping around us like a question mark. At the door, Luca caught my hand. "Aurora, whatever you decide, I want you to know something." His thumb brushed across my knuckles. "You're stronger than you realize. If you choose to face Braden alone, you'll survive. You don't need me." Then why make the offer? Because needing and wanting are different things. You don't need me. But maybe you want someone in your corner, someone who sees your strength and wants to amplify it, not diminish it. He released my hand, stepping back. Marco drove me home in silence. When I finally climbed the stairs to my apartment, I found Jenna pacing frantically. "Thank God!" She pulled me inside. "I was 5 minutes from calling the police. Are you okay? Did he hurt you? What happened?" I told her everything. The dinner, the offer, the bedroom that would be mine, the promise of protection and freedom in exchange for playing a role. When I finished, Jenna sat heavily on the couch. This is insane, Aurora. You know that, right? This is completely insane. I know. But you're going to say yes, aren't you? I looked at our small apartment, at the life I'd built through sheer determination. Safe, humble, mine. Everything I'd fought for after leaving Braden. But that safety was an illusion now. Braden knew where I worked, could find me whenever he wanted. And I was so tired of running, of choosing between pride and peace. I think I am, I admitted. I think I'm going to say yes. Jenna pulled me into a hug, fierce and worried. Then I'm checking in on you constantly, and if anything feels wrong, if he does anything that scares you, you call me immediately. I promise. That night, I lay in my narrow bed, staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow I would call Luca and accept his offer. Tomorrow I would agree to move into his house, to play his girlfriend, to let him handle my problems with Braden. Tomorrow my life would change completely. The thought terrified and exhilarated me in equal measure. Outside, the city hummed its usual symphony. And somewhere in the East 70s, Luca Rossi was probably awake too, waiting for my answer with the same certainty he'd shown from the moment we met. I pulled out my phone, typed a simple message. Yes. Sent it before I could change my mind. His response came within seconds. I'll have Marco collect you Saturday morning. Bring what matters. Everything else can be replaced. I set down my phone and closed my eyes. The die was cast. The decision made. In 3 days, I would move into Luca Rossi's home and become his not-quite-real girlfriend, and hope that this particular cage came with a key I could use when I finally needed to fly. Moving day arrived with unseasonable warmth, October pretending to be September. I'd packed my entire life into 4 boxes and 2 suitcases, everything that truly mattered fitting into what Marco's sedan could hold in a single trip. It was sobering, realizing how little I'd accumulated in 25 years. Jenna helped me pack my grandmother's recipe books last, wrapping them carefully in newspaper. You know I support you, she said, not meeting my eyes. But I'm scared. This feels like you're disappearing. I'm not disappearing. I'll be 15 minutes away. 15 minutes in a whole different world. She finally looked up. Promise me you won't lose yourself in his life. Promise me you'll still be Aurora, still work toward your bakery, still be my best friend who texts me nonsense at 2 a.m. I pulled her into a hug, fighting tears. I promise. This is temporary. 6 months, then I'm back to normal life, just with better savings and no Braden to worry about. 6 months. She didn't sound convinced. Marco arrived exactly at 9 as scheduled. He loaded my boxes with care, treating my meager possessions like they mattered. The drive to Luca's townhouse was quiet, Marco respecting my need for silence as I processed this surreal transition. The house looked different in morning light, less imposing. Just a beautiful home on a tree-lined street where people walked dogs and carried coffee. Marco showed me to my suite, which had been transformed since I'd seen it 3 days ago. Fresh flowers on the dresser, the closet stocked with basics in my size, the bathroom filled with toiletries I actually used, not generic luxury brands. Mr. Rossi wanted you to feel at home, Marco explained. If anything isn't to your liking, just let staff know. Staff. I had staff now, apparently. Where is he? Luca? Business meeting downtown. He'll be back this afternoon. Marco set down my last box. Lunch will be served at 1 if you're hungry. Otherwise, take time to settle in. This is your home now. After he left, I stood in the center of my new room, feeling unmoored. Everything was perfect, expensive, not mine. I unpacked slowly, finding places for my grandmother's books, my few clothes lost in the massive closet, my toiletries barely filling 1 drawer. By noon, I'd unpacked everything and found myself with nothing to do. I wandered the 3rd floor, discovering a sitting room with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a small study with a desk facing the garden, a bathroom large enough to host a party. Voices drifted from downstairs, staff going about their work. I felt like an intruder in this smooth-running machine, uncertain where I fit. My phone buzzed. Luca, how's the settling in? Need anything? Everything's perfect, thank you. Lunch is ready whenever you are. Maria is an excellent cook. I made my way down to the second floor, following the scent of something delicious to a dining room less formal than the one where we'd had dinner. Maria, the same woman who'd served us, smiled warmly. Ms. Aurora, please, sit. I've made a light lunch. I didn't know your preferences yet. The spread was hardly light. Fresh salad, grilled chicken, pasta with vegetables, crusty bread, and 3 dessert options. I took modest portions, acutely aware I was being evaluated. This is wonderful, I said after the first bite. You're incredibly talented. Maria beamed. Mr. Rossi said you're a baker yourself. I'd love to learn your techniques sometime if you're willing. The genuine interest in her voice eased something in my chest. Maybe I could find a place here after all. I spent the afternoon in the garden, a hidden oasis I hadn't noticed from the windows. Someone had put considerable care into creating this space, mixing formal structure with wild abundance. I found a bench beneath an old oak tree and sat with my grandmother's oldest recipe book, running my fingers over her handwritten notes. I hope you know what you're doing, Nona, I whispered to the pages, because I'm not sure I do. Talking to yourself or the book? I jumped, nearly dropping the precious volume. Luca stood a few feet away, suit jacket draped over his arm, tie loosened. He looked tired, the first time I'd seen anything but complete control in his expression. My grandmother wrote these, I said, clutching the book. Sometimes I talk to her through them. Helps me think. He moved closer, gesturing to the bench. May I? I nodded, and he sat beside me, close enough that I could feel his warmth but not crowding. He smelled of fall air and that sandalwood cologne that was becoming familiar. How was your first day? He asked. Surreal. Beautiful, but surreal. I keep expecting to wake up. It's an adjustment, but you'll find your rhythm. He glanced at the book. What recipe are you consulting? Her chocolate torte. She used to make it for special occasions, claimed the secret was in when you folded the eggs. Will you make it sometime? I'd like to taste something from those pages. The request was simple, but it felt significant somehow, like he was asking to know a piece of my history, my heart. Maybe, if you're good. His laugh was surprised and genuine. If I'm good, you realize most people don't set conditions on me? Then most people are missing out on the fun of making you work for things. Something shifted in his eyes, heat flickering behind the control. Careful, Aurora. I tend to want things more when they're difficult to obtain. The air between us suddenly felt charged, heavy with possibility. I stood quickly, needing distance. I should let you rest. You look exhausted. Negotiations took longer than expected. He stood as well, rolling his shoulders. There's something we should discuss. I have an event Tuesday evening. Gallery opening. Several important business associates will be there. It will be our first public appearance together. Reality crashed back. The arrangement, the role I'd agreed to play. So soon? Better to establish the relationship quickly. Rumors spread fast in certain circles. He studied my face. You'll need something appropriate to wear. I've arranged for a stylist to come Monday. She'll take care of everything. I can dress myself. I know you can, but these events have expectations. The stylist will help you navigate them. His tone softened. Think of it as armor, not costume. You're still you, just dressed for battle. The phrase resonated. Armor, not costume. Maybe I could do this after all. Okay, Monday for the stylist. Thank you. He hesitated then. Aurora, I know this is overwhelming, but you're not alone in this. If you need anything at all, just ask. After he left, I returned to my suite and found a tablet on the desk I hadn't noticed before. A note in strong handwriting. For your bakery research and recipes, access to any sites or resources you need. L. The thoughtfulness of it cracked something in my chest. He'd remembered my dream, created space for it even in this arrangement. Monday, the stylist arrived with enough clothes to stock a boutique. Claudia was efficient and kind, listening to my concerns about looking like myself while fitting Luca's world. Mr. Rossi was very clear, she said. Nothing too revealing, nothing that makes you uncomfortable. We're enhancing your natural style, not changing it. She was true to her word. The clothes she selected were beautiful but wearable, dresses and separates I could imagine actually living in. For the gallery opening, she chose a midnight blue dress in silk that flowed like water, elegant, without being ostentatious. You'll stop traffic, she promised, but in a way that feels like you. Tuesday evening arrived too quickly. I dressed carefully, my grandmother's locket at my throat, hands trembling slightly as I fastened the delicate clasp. This was it, the first test of whether I could play this role convincingly. Luca knocked at 7 precisely. When I opened the door, his expression transformed from controlled politeness to something deeper, more primal. You're breathtaking, he said simply. Claudia did good work. Claudia had excellent material to work with. He offered his arm. Ready? The gallery was in Chelsea, all white walls and dramatic lighting. As we entered, I felt the shift in attention, heads turning, conversations pausing. Luca kept his hand at the small of my back, possessive but not controlling, guiding me through the crowd. Luca, we'd heard you might come. A silver-haired man approached, his eyes flickering to me with undisguised curiosity. And who is this lovely creature? Marcus, meet Aurora Reyes. Aurora, Marcus Wentworth, curator and insufferable snob. Marcus laughed, taking my hand. Guilty on both counts. How did someone like you end up with someone like him? Elevator accident, I said, making Luca choke on his champagne. We moved through the crowd, Luca introducing me to dozens of people whose names blurred together. Business associates, artists, society figures. Everyone wanted to know about me, about us, about how we'd met. Luca deflected most questions smoothly, but I caught the calculation in people's eyes. They were measuring, assessing, trying to determine what my presence meant. You're doing beautifully, Luca murmured during a quiet moment. Natural, charming. Everyone is completely convinced. Convinced of what? We haven't even touched. His eyes darkened. That's easily remedied. He pulled me closer, his hand spanning my waist, thumbs stroking in slow circles that sent awareness cascading through me. To anyone watching, it looked like casual affection. To me, it felt like lightning. Is this necessary? I asked breathlessly. Extremely. My competitors are watching, wondering if you're a weakness they can exploit. His lips brushed my temple, intimate and claiming. Let them see you're protected. That you're mine. The word mine shouldn't have affected me. This was an arrangement, a role we were playing. But something in my body responded to his certainty, to the possessive warmth of his touch. There's someone here I need to warn you about, he said, his tone shifting to something darker. Viktor Kozlov, Russian businessman with interests that occasionally conflict with mine. He'll try to get information from you, maybe offer to help you if you ever need to escape me. Why would he do that? Because causing me problems amuses him. Don't engage. Don't accept anything from him. Don't be alone with him. Before I could respond, a man appeared at Luca's shoulder. Blonde, pale-eyed, with a smile that didn't reach his face. Luca, what an unexpected pleasure. His accent was thick, Russian. Viktor Kozlov, clearly. And this must be the mysterious Aurora I've heard whispers about. Viktor, Luca's voice went cold. I didn't know you appreciated art. I appreciate many things. Beauty, for instance. His gaze traveled over me in a way that made my skin crawl. You've chosen well, Luca. Though I wonder if such a delicate flower understands what she's gotten herself into. I understand perfectly, I said, surprising myself. Thank you for your concern. Viktor's smile sharpened. Of course, though if you ever need a friend, someone outside Luca's influence, I'm always available. She won't, Luca said flatly. Enjoy the gallery, Viktor. After he walked away, I felt Luca's tension vibrating through his frame. That was a warning shot. He knows about you now. Will try to use you against me. How? By making you doubt me. By offering protection if you want to leave. By suggesting I'm dangerous and he's safer. His hand tightened on my waist. Don't believe him, Aurora. Whatever I am, Viktor is worse. The rest of the evening passed in a blur. We stayed another hour, playing the devoted couple, before Luca announced we were leaving. In the car, he finally relaxed slightly, though wariness still lined his features. You handled tonight perfectly, he said. Even Viktor. I'm impressed. I told you I could do this. You did. I should have believed you more readily. Back at the townhouse, he walked me to my suite, his presence solid and comforting after hours of performance. Get some rest, he said. Tomorrow we can go back to normal routine. What is normal routine? Whatever you want it to be. Work on your business plan, experiment in the kitchen, read in the garden. This is your home, Aurora. Live in it. He turned to leave, but I caught his wrist. Thank you. For tonight, for the clothes, for the tablet, for seeing me. Something vulnerable flickered in his eyes. You make it easy to see you. You shine too brightly to be invisible. He lifted my hand, pressed a kiss to my knuckles that burned like a brand, then left. I closed my door and leaned against it, heart racing. This was supposed to be an arrangement, a business transaction disguised as romance. But the way he looked at me, touched me, spoke to me, felt dangerously real. 6 months suddenly seemed both too long and not nearly long enough. 3 months passed in a strange dream. I fell into a rhythm with the household, spending mornings testing recipes in Luca's restaurant-grade kitchen, afternoons researching business plans in the garden, evenings occasionally playing the devoted girlfriend at Luca's business events. We attended dinners, galas, art openings, always together, always touching, always convincing. And somewhere along the way, the touches stopped feeling like performance. His hand at my back became comfort. His whispered comments during boring speeches became the highlight of my evening. His rare, genuine smiles became something I worked to earn. Braden had disappeared entirely. One visit from Luca's associates, and my ex-fiancé had suddenly moved to California for a new opportunity. I should have felt guilty about however that happened. Instead, I felt free. Jenna visited twice a week, her initial wariness gradually shifting to cautious acceptance as she saw me thriving rather than wilting. My savings grew. My business plan took shape. And slowly, dangerously, I started thinking of the townhouse as home. It was a Tuesday in January when everything changed. I was in the kitchen, working on a new tart recipe, when Marco appeared in the doorway. His expression was grave. Ms. Aurora, Mr. Rossi needs to see you immediately. The study, 3rd floor. The urgency in his tone sent my heart racing. I wiped flour from my hands and hurried upstairs. Luca's study was a room I'd never entered, his private sanctuary. The door was open, revealing dark wood paneling, leather furniture, and walls lined with books. Luca stood by the window, his posture rigid. "Close the door," he said without turning. I did, anxiety coiling in my stomach. "What's wrong?" He finally turned, and my breath caught. His face was a mask of controlled fury, but beneath it I saw fear. Real, visceral fear. Viktor Kozlov has made a move. He's kidnapped the daughter of one of my business partners, holding her as leverage to force me into surrendering certain territories. Horror crashed through me. A child? He took a child? She's 16, old enough to be terrified, too young to protect herself. Luca's hands clenched. He sent a message, says he knows about you, knows you matter to me, suggests if I don't cooperate, you might be next. The world tilted. This is because of me, because of our arrangement. This is because Viktor is a monster who uses innocence as weapons. He moved toward me, his hands gripping my shoulders. I need to handle this, but I can't do it if I'm worried about your safety. I need you somewhere secure. Where? There's a property upstate, isolated, heavily secured. Marco will take you tonight. For how long? However long it takes to resolve this. Days, maybe weeks. His jaw tightened. I'm sorry, Aurora. I promised you'd be safe with me, and now you're in danger because of me. I studied his face, seeing past the control to the turmoil beneath. This wasn't calculated anymore. This was real fear, real guilt. Then I'll go, I said. But you have to promise me something. Anything. Get that girl back safely, whatever it takes. His expression softened marginally. I will. I promise you that. 2 hours later, I was in an SUV with Marco and 2 other security personnel, driving north through darkness. Luca had kissed my forehead before I left, a gesture so tender it had brought tears to my eyes. Be safe, he'd whispered. Come back to me. The safe house was a cabin in the Catskills, remote and beautiful. Over the next week, I paced its rooms, worked on recipes to keep busy, and waited for updates that came in frustratingly vague texts from Luca. Making progress, stay patient, negotiating, don't worry. Almost resolved, soon. On the 8th day, Marco received a call. His expression transformed from tense to relieved. The girl is safe. Mr. Rossi is handling final details with Kozlov. We can return to the city tomorrow. That night, I barely slept, relief and anticipation warring inside me. I wanted to see Luca, to confirm he was unharmed, to stop pretending our connection was just an arrangement, because somewhere in these 3 months, I'd stopped pretending. I'd fallen for him. Truly, terrifyingly fallen for the dangerous man who'd offered me protection and given me so much more. We returned to the townhouse the next afternoon. Marco escorted me inside, but it was empty. Staff absent, rooms quiet. Where is everyone? Mr. Rossi gave staff the day off. He's upstairs, waiting for you. I climbed to the 5th floor for the first time, to Luca's private domain. His bedroom door was open. I found him standing by the window, his back to me, still wearing yesterday's clothes. He looked exhausted, battered, but whole. Luca. He turned, and the expression on his face stole my breath. Raw, vulnerable, stripped of every defense. Aurora. I crossed the room and crashed into him, wrapping my arms around his waist, holding tight. He folded around me, his face buried in my hair, his body shaking slightly. I thought I might lose you, he whispered. Viktor threatened to send men for you. I had to make sure you were so far away, so protected, that even his reach couldn't find you. I'm here, I'm safe. And so is the girl. Back with her family. Victor won't threaten anyone I care about again. I pulled back enough to see his face. What did you do? What was necessary? No elaboration, but I saw the cost in his eyes. Whatever necessary had meant, it had taken something from him. These 3 months, I said, my voice shaking. This arrangement, it stopped being pretend somewhere along the way. At least for me. His hands came up to frame my face, thumbs stroking my cheeks. It was never pretend for me. From that first moment in the elevator, you were mine. I just had to wait for you to realize you wanted to be. I do want to be. Not for protection, not for safety. Just because you're you and I'm me, and somehow we fit. He kissed me then, deep and claiming and achingly tender. Everything we'd held back for months poured into that kiss. All the restraint and longing and fear transformed into connection. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. Stay with me. Not because of the arrangement. Just stay. For how long? Forever, if you'll have me. I thought about my grandmother's recipe books, about her instruction never to waste my talent making someone else rich. But Luca had never tried to make me smaller. He'd given me space to grow, resources to dream, protection to thrive. Yes, I said simply. Forever. 18 months later, I stood in my bakery, Aurora's sweet haven, watching the line of customers stretch out the door. Luca had helped me find the perfect location, provided the initial capital, connected me with the right people. But the business itself was mine, built on my grandmother's recipes and my own determination. He leaned against the counter now, stealing a macaroon while I wasn't looking. Those are for customers, I scolded without heat. I'm a very important customer. Your most important customer. He pulled me close, heedless of the flour dusting my apron. Have I mentioned lately that you're remarkable? Not in the last hour. Then I'm overdue. He kissed me softly. You're remarkable, Aurora Rossi. The name still felt new, strange, and wonderful. We'd married quietly 6 months ago, just us and a handful of close friends. No performance, no arrangement. Just 2 people who'd found each other in an elevator and decided to keep finding each other every day after. Mrs. Rossi, your 3 o'clock appointment is here, Maria called from the back. She worked as my kitchen manager now, having left Luca's household staff to help me build my dream. The food critic? I asked nervously. The food critic, confirmed. Who will love everything you make because it's brilliant. You're biased. Completely and accurately. He released me reluctantly. I'll leave you to it. Dinner tonight, just us? Perfect. He left, and I returned to my element, creating beautiful things with my hands, building the life my grandmother had wanted for me. A life where I didn't have to choose between safety and independence. A life where the dangerous man I'd stumbled into on a desperate afternoon had become my partner, my protector, my love. Sometimes the best things came from the worst moments, from panic and flight, and a trapped elevator where everything changed, from running straight into the arms of the man I'd been running toward all along, even before I knew he existed.